Hey, everybody, welcome back once again. This is Mark Lawrence, and we're all set to go against the spread on the National Football League Championship weekend. Along with me, joining us on the show today will be our cast of experts. First of all, Jim Feist from Las Vegas, the legend himself. Jim, how are you doing these days?
I'm feeling pretty good today. Thank you. I'm ready to rock and roll. Championship weekend. The damn shame that Bo Nix got hurt, but still we're gonna have two really great games.
Yeah, we'll talk about that Bo Nix injury here in just a bit or so. Andy Iskoe, TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas. How goes the playoffs for you, Andy?
So far, so good. Not that great last week with the way things turned out, but certainly some very entertaining games, some very controversial games with what is and what isn't a catch. It should be obvious, but apparently it's anything but obvious these days, and I think the league has to look at that as far as being a concern, regardless of what side you are on. They need to have some sort of better definition. But if it looks like a catch, smells like a catch, it's probably a catch, and well, that's a discussion for another day. All is well. I'm looking forward. I can't believe we are down to 3 games remaining. Seems like it was just last August, and we were talking about how great some of these teams were going to be and what disappointments for others. But here we are down to the final 3 games of the season. I think we've got 2 very compelling matchups this weekend.
Yes, we do. We called out in our Playbook Championship preview newsletter this week the fact that of the 4 teams that are here before the season began, the odds that were in Vegas on these teams even making the playoffs, 3 of them were plus odds. The only one was a favorite to make the playoffs. That favorite was the LA Rams, and they all have arrived, the Rams and the 3 other teams. Greg DePalma, our producer extraordinaire, how are you doing these days?
Doing good. A lot going on now besides football. I've been heavily getting involved in college basketball. We've got our horse racing picks up once again at 4 o'clock. Actually, just a few hours from now. There's a big day at Gulfstream Park, as you probably are well aware of, on Saturday. The PGA Tour started last week again, and NASCAR starts. We have another show to start next week. So there's a lot going on, and once football ends, the sports doesn't stop. So it's fun to kind of pick new things up too. You know, believe it or not, you do kind of get a little bit bored of football, and you kind of want something new, even though the offseason in football is pretty exciting, and that's another thing to look forward to.
Well, getting bored about football, my answer to that, Greg, would be never.
Yeah.
What I found myself doing this week was outlining things for our Playbook Preview Guide magazine next year and starting to gather all the notes on all the college football teams.
In fact, I have a question for you about that, Mark, because I think I heard you with Ken last night. And I know you usually go with an NFL player on the cover of the magazine. And you mentioned, I think, that play with Mendoza in the championship game. You said something along the lines of that should be on the cover of every magazine next fall.
Yeah, that was my feeling after watching that championship game, that play when you found him leaping into the end zone, that still of that shot, I think epitomized what the college football season was all about, him especially. And we just may end up seeing that. The problem is he'll be probably going from Indiana to the National Football League, but nonetheless, I think people will indeed identify with that touchdown that he ran on that quarterback.
Especially if you're able to transpose, let's say, for example, a Raiders jersey on him instead of an Indiana, or side by side the same picture, one in an Indiana jersey and the other in whatever team drafts him, like the Raiders, might be interesting because the magazine, while it is both for college and pro, I think, and most of us would, I think, agree, those kind of magazines, football magazines, generally appeal more for the NFL simply because the NFL is more popular nationally than is college football.
Well, that they do. That's why Jalen Hurts was on this year's cover, quarterback of the winning Super Bowl team the previous year. So sometimes the players that are on the cover aren't the players that you would number one most desire.
I'm trying to visualize right now Sam Darnold on the cover of next year's Playbook.
Don't even think about that.
No. I have a nomination. Y.A. Tittle.
Y.A. Tittle, number 14.
Now, how the hell do you remember that?
Number 14.
That is one of the most famous pictures of all time, with him kneeling on the ground without the helmet, all bloodied. I think that was from the 63 championship game against the Bears.
Oh, my God. You guys have tremendous
very
memories.
famous photo.
Oh my! I'm too young to remember that stuff.
And we don't even need AI to bring that up, Jim. You know.
I'm sorry I did then.
Now, listen, I don't. I don't. Next year. I'm going to be doing college football.
Good.
I have not
all
done.
right.
I've not done for the last 2 years because of the nil and the portal. Now I've gotten settled down. I got to understand it a little bit better. I was listening to Joel Klatt. I think everybody knows who he
Yes,
is.
he is. Good.
And he was making comments about how great the nil in the portal is and how it's raised college football and basketball to making it possible for teams that would never be thought of to have a chance at the national championship to now have a chance at the national championship. And I guess the Indiana Hoosiers winning it kind of bears that out.
Yeah, it does. And I think what he says has a lot of validity to it as well. We might not like the structure and how these players are being paid and transferring each year. It seems 4 quarterbacks, 4 schools. But what he says in the end is true. We're finding a lot more excitement in college football. A lot of programs, as he mentioned here, that you wouldn't even consider being eligible to be making the college football playoffs now are. The Indiana Hoosiers, the classic example. I know they were there. They've been there 2 years in a row, but they were the losingest team in all of college football entering this season. All of
Mark,
college football.
you may have to, instead of including a lot of statistics in the preview, you're going to have to start including payroll.
That is not a bad thought at all, Andy.
Really?
How about the billionaires that support the teams?
Well, a lot of them might not want to be identified, but but it's true. I think the dollars that these teams are spending is getting to be a little bit more widely known of what it is all about. We had talked about Texas Tech earlier on in the football season,
Exactly.
and the buckets full of money that the oil baron dropped into that program. But it was Miami of Florida that really had a cash cow as far as the players were concerned. In fact, they even spent more money than Indiana did this football season here. So I think that's going to end up having a bearing on people's perception of what these college football teams are going to be, at least before the season begins, about how much money they spent on these football players to bring them in.
Well, keep in mind, because in years ago, I'm not going to say college football handicapping was easier years ago, although to a certain extent it was, because you didn't have the roster turnover that you now have. It started probably about 10 years ago where you had more and more transfers and they eased the transfer rule. Well, now with the NIL, you're basically buying players for 1 year and you start the cycle all over again. So, will you be looking for a team that retains a lot of its people from the years past, from 1 year to the next, or you'll be looking at the team that has the highest, the 5 teams that have the highest payroll coming into the current season? It's a much greater challenge than it's ever been before because of the lack of stability in rosters.
Well, it's all being brought to the forefront now because, we know, Andy, going back to the days, I mean, you can go back to, I often cite Tony Dorsett took a pay cut when he was drafted by the National Football League when he left Pittsburgh. And we're going back 30 years. So they were paying players then, obviously. I'm sorry?
50 years.
50 years. Dorsett, 50 years? Oh, my goodness.
Mid-70s, I believe, is when he was.
What is that list, Greg?
This is the estimated roster costs for college football playoff teams this year.
Oh.
So as you can see here, Texas A&M led, Ohio State was second, and then you had Miami was 5th, and Indiana was 10th out of this list. So Indiana spent over 21 million, Miami spent over 24 million, but Texas A&M, not a big surprise, or Texas Tech, also not a big surprise that they were 2 of the big spenders, which you don't see here, even though they're not in the playoffs, of course, is Texas. And strange is it to think, but Texas actually was behind Texas A&M and Texas Tech. But they're spending a lot of money this offseason. They're going all in on Arch Manning's final season.
How do you know that, Greg?
Well, they have to actually, these are estimated, keeping in mind, but basically, you have your agents, and your agents have to put these contracts together with the players. And then this is the information that they share with the universities, and then you can just find out this information. So that's why it's all estimated. There's no legal reason you have to disclose this to the general public, but you find it out. And this is how they find it out.
Greg, are there differences as far as disclosures if it's a public supported university versus a private university, as far as what they must disclose publicly.
Yeah,
as
I
far
don't.
as,
Again,
finances.
yeah, I don't really think so. Like I said, these are all estimations, so I would think that the same applies. I think you're probably just estimating that either way. So again, there's no legal recourse. There's no website like a salary cap in the NFL where you can go to a site and here's all of the information on one page of what everybody makes. They don't have any of that. This is still a work in progress.
Yes.
This is still a work
It
in
might
progress.
be there for next season because it's been so.
Well, the
Yeah,
hundred's on for next
maybe.
year right now, guys. I was reading Bill Conley, ESPN. He put a terrific article together about projecting 2026 football, and he had Texas A&M as making the playoffs and probably winning the playoffs. That's his choice right now. So what you bring up here, Greg, sort of goes hand in hand with what Bill says, that not only do they have the talent, they've got the money behind the program is what they've got.
Well, Indiana, see, the one thing that Cignetti did this year to get his team over the top, besides the players he brought in the first year that just got a little bit older, more experienced and better, was the acquisition of Mendoza.
Yep.
Now Mendoza's gone, but he's already acquired another quarterback. So he's got a new quarterback. He's not Mendoza, and not many. You're not going to get lucky and bring in a Mendoza type quarterback every year to your program. But they're going to have another quarterback, another new quarterback who's making a lot of money in Indiana, and they're going to be very competitive again next season.
Well, Mendoza's going to have some big shoes to fill. I think he was obviously the surprise player of all of college football this year. It was really, really nice to see him win the award, not only the award, but to win the national championship. He's such a great human being, a great person, a real strong Christian, and just epitomizes everything you want to see in a college football player. And I'm only going to wish him nothing but the best of success when he goes on to the National Football League. Andy, would you say he will be the number one pick in the draft? Mendoza?
That seems to be the consensus, but many times we've seen the person projected coming out of the end of the regular season or the end of the playoffs, end of the bowls, being the number one, and then there's a lot of work that has to be done between now and the combines and the drafts, and so that can change. And as far as I'm concerned, I still believe in the eye test as much as anything else. I certainly believe in the eye test more than how fast you are in the 40. And I think from what we've seen, he was the best player in college football this year, and there's nothing to suggest that barring some sort of unforeseen injury or whatever between now and then, we certainly hope that doesn't occur, he should be the number one pick. And the Raiders, and I think what they will do is I think they have to listen to offers. They're talking about the Raiders are in a rebuild situation, and I disagree with that. You can only be in a rebuild situation if you had something recently to build from or build back towards. They're building from the ground up, basically, with the roster that they have right now. We don't know about Max Crosby on the defense. Genti, of course, should have a better year if they can get some offensive blocking. So I think that they will be looking at trade offers, but I think it would take something extremely dramatic for the Raiders not to pick number one. And I would think that if they do indeed, I would think Mendoza's probably that guy. I think there's a lot of talk, and of course, with Tom Brady part of the ownership group, I think that enhances the chances that they will make the proper decision as far as Mendoza goes.
Well, there'll be a Mendoza at Georgia Tech next year. His brother transferred to Georgia Tech.
Oh, that's where he transferred. Okay.
Yes, and the quarterback that Kirk Cignetti went after this year. This will be his third straight year of having a starting transfer quarterback since he's been there, and obviously he's just plugging and playing and doing what he needs to do, feeling comfortable about a quarterback behind center. But right now he signed Josh Hoover, a quarterback from TCU, who transfers in. He's got over 7,000 passing yards, so he's going to fit the bill here, obviously, for Kirk Cignetti.
I'd say he's probably getting about $50 per yard.
Well, he's probably I would probably put talent-wise, Hoover will be between Rourke, who was the first guy there, who they acquired from Ohio, and Mendoza. So Hoover's in the middle. He's a good quarterback. He's not Mendoza. So again, that's what I said, but he's good enough. And he's never had the talent at TCU that he's going to have at Indiana, or the coaching, even though, again, Sonny Dykes is a good coach. TCU is a halfway decent team, but it's not Indiana. And the other thing to keep in mind that about the whole Indiana thing is that, as we were talking just a couple of weeks ago, I think you asked this question, Mark, about who the best conference was in college football. Well, the Big Ten has now won 3 straight national championships. So I think that pretty much puts that down to
I'll tell you the most surprising thing I learned in the last week, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, especially Greg, who's really in tune with this. The way too early preseason poll for 2026 came out. Alabama's number 17.
Yeah, that surprised me too, Andy. I mean, Nick Saban or Bear Bryant turning over in his grave to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, number 17.
And Nick Saban's thinking I got out at the right time.
Yeah, probably so.
And it had
exactly.
to do with dealing with the NIL situation. A lot of those coaches who've been around for forever. I'm surprised Kirk Ferentz, who I think now is the granddaddy of the coaches in the FBS division, how he still manages to get by there. Because, he's probably he's got to be close to 70, 75 in there, something in there. And he's got to deal with this NIL. And I think that a lot of the younger coaches coming up, this is going to be part of way of life for them. So I think we'll see the structure. But I don't know if we're going to see the longevity that we've had historically in college football, because it's going to be now, hey, we're giving you the money. You got to produce. You got 2-3 years to produce.
Well, guys, let's shift gears and move over to the National Football League for the championship games on tap this particular weekend. And our people that are listening or watching this show, we want to remind you once again to hit the subscribe button. If you haven't already subscribed, we would deeply appreciate that. Hit the like button while you're there, and also ring that bell. It would also be always very favorable to us and everybody here associated with the show. Also, join us on our community page, where you'll find Jim Feist, myself, and a bundle of perks and picks from other experts on the show, including Andy Isco and Greg DePalma. That's on our community page. Check that out. You'll find picks and selections available at giveaway type costs. Now, guys, let's get it over to the National Football League before that we get to the games themselves. Another big note of what's been going on in the National Football League have been the coaching changes. And we saw it right out of the gate. It was Black Monday, and Black Monday hit rather hard for some coaches. The biggest move was obviously Jim Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski, arguably. A lot of coaches have made changes here so far, but 10 NFL teams have fired or released head coaches this year. That ties for the most in the National Football League history. 4 of them have been signed since then. They include Robert Saleh from going over to Tennessee, Harbaugh with the Giants, Stefanski with the Atlanta Falcons, which was, I think, a nice pickup by Atlanta. He's going to reunite with Kirk Cousins, if that means anything. And the Miami Dolphins, Jeff Hafley. Let me ask you this question, Jim, here about as far as these coaches are concerned in the National Football League. A lot of people think that some teams that hire defensive coordinators don't help their teams offensively. Do you think that rings true in these hires, or are they just hiring the best man for the job?
Well, I think there's 2 schools of thought on that. I mean, let's take a look at the Saleh going to Tennessee, where they have a very young quarterback that needs development. I think he has a lot of talent, and I think he can be a very good quarterback. But I don't know that he's going to get that direction from the head coach, because he's a defensive-oriented guy.
Yes.
Now, so then you can look down the line then and say, oh, well, all they really need is a quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator that works with Wade and develop him. And that's true if you can find that, and if Saleh will give up that part of the job to do that, because the kid's going to need some direction and training. And we've seen it before. We've seen it with Darnold and we almost everybody that goes to the Jets, no matter who goes there, ends up a mess. So we need to have understand that these kids coming out of college need more training. They need to understand what happens in the pros and the speed of the game. And the defensive coordinator doesn't really make that happen. I've always said that even up in Buffalo, where Josh Allen's been there, and the head coach, you can't argue with the head coaches who just got fired, his record. But I always felt that he was better when Dable was there and developed him and into the quarterback he is and was. But then he falls off when he doesn't have that kind of direction. I think that there's a combination that needs to take. It's almost like a marriage. You have to have the pieces fit together. And I prefer to have a young, maybe not so much with an older quarterback that knows what the hell he's doing, but a young guy like a Wade. I think he needs development, training, and I think you need an offensive-minded head coach or offensive coordinator / quarterback coach.
Andy, to follow up on that, we've got some coaches that were former head coaches in the National Football League that would be big name attractions as far as signing goes. The likes of John Gruden, perhaps, that have been around and kicked the tires before. Do you think that's a direction that any of these teams that are still looking for a head coach would want to do, going with a proven commodity for a head coach? Or are they looking to bring these young uprising kids that are younger and can relate more to the team?
Well, I think there's no substitute for experience. So someone like a John Gruden, who's been a proven winner where he's been in his career, Tampa Bay and the Raiders, would make sense. Of course, he's got some issues with the league, and I don't know how the league would feel about it. But apparently, the league says, yeah, he can get a job. But one of the things, and Jim sort of mentioned it, is that a head coach is more than just a head coach as far as strategy. He's almost like an administrator in many ways. He's a lot of the functions that the general manager has. I've always maintained, and we've seen it so often. Josh McDaniels may be the latest example. I think you had a guy like Wade Phillips on defense, North Turner on offense, who are great offensive coordinators, but have not been able to handle the job of the added responsibilities that come with being a head coach on still tinkering or having an insight with your specialty, offense or defense. I've always felt that the smart ownership groups, and I don't know how this goes over with whoever the head coach would be, but you pay the coordinator almost a head coach's salary, whether it be offensive or defense, to stick exclusively to doing what he's proven his specialty to be over the years that got him in consideration for a head coaching job. A lot of, because there are different skill sets that are required when you're a head coach than if you're just a coordinator, yet you still have the same 24 hours in a day to try and get multiple jobs done. So I think that getting an experienced head coach who has success, and by the way, and we'll see it with Robert Saleh, we saw it years ago with Pete Carroll, we saw it with Bill Belichick. Just because you fail in your first opportunity doesn't mean you can't go on and become a Hall of Fame coach. So don't give up on guys who got. I think McDermott would be he'll be an attractive candidate somewhere, although he comes from a defensive background. By the way, I think we now have our parlay of the year in football for the 2026 season. It'll be when LSU visits Ole Miss, and one, if not both games, when Atlanta plays Cleveland with the Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski quote-unquote feud.
You mean Atlanta plays Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Atlanta plays Tampa Bay. Yeah,
right.
With Stefanski
So
now.
what will we be parlaying, Andy? I know we've got all the symmetrics there about
I will probably be taking the sides of Baker Mayfield and Ole Miss.
Oh, Baker Mayfield and Ole Miss. Okay.
Baker Mayfield feels that he was not. I don't know if respected is the right word. Treated, however, that Stefanski just got rid of him and didn't interact with him. And of course, we all know the Ole Miss situation that almost came to fruition. That I think they felt let down, especially by a coach who always preaches teamwork and we're committed and all that. I don't think that goes over well. So I mean, that's just some early thoughts. But keep in mind also, especially in the Ole Miss case, that'll be factored into the line.
When Baker Mayfield left Cleveland, who became the quarterback?
Was that Watson?
I don't think so.
Well, Watson was signed. Was it maybe the year? That's a good question. Who did replace Baker Mayfield in Cleveland?
Was it the guy, the kid that came out of, what was it?
Manziel?
Was it him?
Yeah,
because if that's the case, that was not Stefanski that wanted Manziel.
Well, the real reason Baker Mayfield left Cleveland, guys, is he was very immature. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and they just couldn't put up with it anymore.
So was Manziel, for that matter.
Exactly. Maybe they saw the same pattern there, or assumed that there was going to be the similar pattern. But he's really matured. Baker Mayfield has since he's moved on. But that was a decision that they made because of that reason for Baker. He was always a player that it was always going to be a quarterback that would keep you in games. Maybe he lacked a little bit of size, but as far as his competitiveness goes, I don't think he takes a backseat to anybody in the National Football League.
I think when we start talking about Baker and Tampa Bay, we have to analyze what the hell happened to them this year. Besides, I understand the injuries, but they just fell off, and he became less of a quarterback, and he became very hesitant. I mean, I've listened to analysis on him. He became very hesitant in what he was doing down the stretch, last 6-7 games. He wasn't the same player. And even in the beginning, when they were winning, it was like comeback after comeback after comeback. They weren't playing that well. So they did lose their offensive coordinator, who was Liam Cohen, and their offensive coordinator has already been fired. So was it see, this is where we get into this thing, who to blame? Who do you point the finger at? Was it the offensive coordinator that got moved on, which very well could be the case? Or it could be the injuries.
Well, when you take a look at the success that Liam Cohen had with Trevor Lawrence,
amazing.
I think there's the answer.
That could be it. That could be it, Andy. That could be.
And his first coordinator.
That wasn't just a gradual improvement in Trevor Lawrence. He's an entirely new quarterback.
Explosive improvement, definitely.
Yeah, his first 2 years, he actually had 2 NFL coaches that ended up in the playoffs this year, at Carolina and at Jacksonville. And so he went from one offensive coordinator who gets hired by Carolina, another offensive coordinator comes in, he gets hired the next year by Jacksonville. And at that point, you can't get that lucky. You can't go with a third straight gem coordinator hire. I mean, back-to-back gem coordinator hires is a miracle in itself. Eventually it was going to catch up to Tampa Bay, that you just can't keep getting lucky. And they went to a guy that just wasn't ready for the job, and then throw in the injury that he had last year as well. So like you said, it was a combination of both, but I was a little bit surprised by their offensive coordinator hire, because they hired the offensive coordinator from Atlanta who was let go. And I don't know, Atlanta fans, they didn't like him very much. Matter of fact, he had a completely different offense for Penix. And when Penix went out, Cousins came in. It was a completely different player. And Cousins basically ran the offense. Cousins was like, no, that's not going to work for me. I'm going to show you how this is going to work. And that's why Cousins and the Falcons started to actually play better down the end of the season, was because that was more of a Kirk Cousins-led offense. So anyway, but that's Tampa Bay's problem.
When Stefanski goes there, it'll be interesting to see exactly what he makes of Kirk Cousins. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him start the season as opposed to Penix, just because of that relationship.
Well, they're gonna let him go. They've already, matter of fact, I had an interview earlier this week with Kevin Knight, who covers the team. It's on the site. You can check it out. And they've already basically worked a contract with Kirk where they're going to let him go. And he's going to be a free agent. And that they're going to save a lot of money because of it. And Penix is still banged up, though. So the big question is going to be, how quickly can Penix, be healthy? And are they just going to bring in a stopgap? And remember, no first-round pick. So are they just going to bring in a stopgap guy, like another Kirk Cousins type, give Penix the opportunity to play it out for the year when he's healthy, and then decide in 2027 what to do if Penix is the man or not?
So are they letting Cousins go because of the money?
What was that, Mark?
Are they letting Cousins go primarily because of his contract, because of the money? Because he sure be a nice stopgap.
Yeah, I asked him about that, and he says, well, it is possible, but unlikely. But he did say it's possible. If Kirk Cousins wanted to come back to Atlanta, he can make a new contract with Atlanta if they wanted to go down that road.
With the exception of Mendoza, I don't think, Greg, this is considered an especially strong quarterback class coming out.
Well, the problem is that some of the guys that were expected to be top 5 guys, Drew Aller for Penn State, injured. Therefore, depending on whether or not he's even going to be healthy enough to play in the All-Star games, he's going to be a middle round guy. And that actually might wind up being a good deal for a team, because now you get a guy that could have been a top 5 pick that got injured and the stock went down. And now you've got a guy that you didn't have to put up first round talent for. Nussmeier is the other guy from LSU. Nussmeier was supposed to be a top 5 pick this year, but LSU had an awful year. Their offensive line was completely new because everybody else went to the pros last year. As you know, LSU had a very bad year. Nussmeier didn't even finish the year. He got hurt at the end of the year, and he was okay, but they just said, I was just going to sit him. So Nussmeier's got talent. There are guys like Aller and Nussmeier, and Beck is going to get drafted. He's got a lot of experience. And there's guys that, there's some players to be had.
What about the kid from Mississippi? I know he's small, but he's tremendous athlete.
Yeah, the problem is his size, really, but he has overcome all of that at this point. And I think you're right, Jim. I just think he's going to be one of those quarterbacks that if he does come out, because right now he's still petitioning to get back for that extra year in college. But if that doesn't go well for him, he's going to come out, and you're still not looking at a first-round draft pick. But again, that's, I think, a good thing. A team can take him in the who knows, day 2, day 3, and who knows? Again, sometimes it's not all about height, and things of that nature. I think he's got a decent enough arm. So, but he's not one of those, prototypical quarterbacks that you got drafted in the first round, which, as we've seen lately, I think you can get away. I think you can get away with that a lot more now than you could have years ago.
How much size-wise? How different is he from Young at the Carolina Panthers?
He's probably pretty similar. I'll have to
I
take
think
a look
a
at
little
that.
stockier too. I mean, Young is rather slight.
I'm very impressed with this kid. What, Childress, right?
Yes.
I'm very impressed. His accuracy with his arm is amazing. He's very quick. He's got some speed. I was very impressed with him.
Yeah,
I think,
Trinidad.
correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, has he already had 6 years of eligibility?
Well, that's the thing. I believe he was, first of all, he was Division II. And I don't know if he had a JUCO year or not, but he had Division II. And even though he has had enough years of eligibility where you would think that that's enough, I think he's trying to get over a loophole, sort of like the JUCO loophole that has allowed some of these quarterbacks that extra year. Again, I don't know if it's going to work or not.
He sat out 1 year, didn't he, because of an injury or something? Then that, I think, was the
I believe so. Yeah. Let's see. Just taking a look here. See, they're listing him at anywhere between like 6 foot 200, which I don't even know if he's 6 feet. If they list you at 6 feet at the college, you're probably 5'11".
Right.
So if they're listing him at 6 feet, though, then yeah, you're looking at a guy that is very similar to Young, to Bryce
Trinidad
Young.
Chambliss.
Yeah,
Chambliss, right.
Baker Mayfield's 6 feet tall. I mean, he's kind of dispelled that in the National Football League as well.
Yes, yeah. And now the good thing is
only 6 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the good thing is you wouldn't have to draft him in the first round. See, Bryce Young was a top pick. So that's the difference. That's why I think he'd be a great value pick. So you can nitpick Bryce Young.
I think he is a great value pick. He looks tremendous to me. That game he played against Miami was really impressive.
All right, guys, let's wrap this up and move over to the National Football League championship games. And to close this segment out, would it be safe to say that when these new football coaches make their hires, and we talked about it earlier on in the show, I think a key to the coaching is their staff that they put together.
Correct.
They're only going to be as good as the people that surround them.
Correct.
And I think Mike Vrabel, look what he did when he picked up Matt Patricia in that defense and what it did for New England.
And Josh McDaniels with Drake May.
Yep.
I'd like to say one thing. Bringing in McDaniel, is it McDaniel from Miami to join Harbaugh with the Chargers?
Yeah.
I think that's a tremendous combination.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. Now you've got Harbaugh in that defense.
Am I saying his name right? McDaniel,
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Now Minter, the defensive coordinator, is up for a head coaching job somewhere. So that would be a loss. If they lose Minter, then you're going to have to replace Minter. But if he doesn't get a head coaching job, then you've got Minter and McDaniel, and that's a hell of a coaching staff with Harbaugh at the lead. But Minter, if he's going to go somewhere, I'm thinking maybe Baltimore is probably the best spot because they've got the whole Harbaugh ties. It makes a lot of sense that if Minter's going to get hired, that Baltimore would be the place to go. I'm actually quite surprised that because a lot of people have talked about Brady in Buffalo, the offensive coordinator, about other jobs. I don't understand why if Brady's such a good hire, why haven't the Bills just hired him? He's in Buffalo.
Right.
He's Josh Allen's right-hand guy. So why don't you just hire? And he's an offensive guy. I'm sure they want to get away from the defensive guy. And that's another story, of course. And I'm not surprised that a lot of people. You even mentioned this yesterday, Jim, on the show at Dom DeMarco's, and I completely agree. And there's a lot of Buffalo fans very upset that McDermott was let go and Bean is still there. the
No,
general manager.
I'm not arguing let McDermott gone, but Bean should
Together,
not still
yes.
he should not still be there.
Yes,
No way.
and he was
Part of it
he was-
had to do was that Bean did not want Coleman as the draft choice, and that proved to be so far.
Keon Coleman?
Yeah,
Yeah, and they gave. By the way, they moved him up. They gave him a better job,
yeah.
and so basically he got hired up. He didn't just lose his job; he got a promotion. So that's what's frustrating a lot of Buffalo Bills fans.
I remember the book, The Peter Principle. It sounds like
Yep.
it's going on there.
It
Well, that's
happens
gone
a
in
lot-
on the
it
NFL
happens
for a
lot in
long
coaching,
time.
Jim. Yes.
Yeah.
And Mike McCarthy, I think, sounds like a really good, perfect fit for Pittsburgh.
Yep.
You
I
get
agree. I think that's a great fit.
you get a quality coach, a Super Bowl winner. He sounds like a perfect Pittsburgh guy. And the other thing that makes a lot of
And the
sense,
thing is, he's from there.
Yeah.
he's from there.
Right.
He coached Aaron Rodgers, which means you could probably work out a deal with Rodgers for another year until you find a young quarterback. So it makes almost too much sense.
I don't want to change the course of the show, and I don't want to go negative here. But what the hell happened to Stroud? What happened to him? What?
Good
How
question.
do you explain what happened to
It looked
him?
like a lot of confidence to me, Jim. I don't think there was
Yeah.
anything physically wrong with him.
He just,
maybe
the
not having
stage-
Nico
was the
Collins
stage
there
too
enough.
big, Mark?
I'm sorry?
Was the stage too big for him?
No, he's been there before. This is his third straight year in that spot that he lost. He lost this game 3 straight years on the road.
Yeah.
He's having, but look, you did take out their number 1 receiver. Then your number 2 receiver gets hurt like a quarter into the game. So he's out now with his top 2 receivers, and he had no confidence to begin with. So
Yeah, he made some. I mean, okay, we all make mistakes, but his decision making was horrible.
yeah. And especially when you have the best defense in football.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just don't turn the ball
Don't make
over.
mistakes.
Yes.
Oh my God. I mean, they completely shut down New England if he doesn't give them the ball every other down.
Yeah, it's like playing tennis. All you need to do is return the serve. That's all you need to do. Let the other person make the mistake.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's look at the National Football League this weekend on the championship card here. Couple of pluses and minuses, if you will, for each team here. I'll set the table that way, and then we'll go around the table, get some thoughts from everybody here. From our database, AFC championship games, home teams have done really well, 30-15 straight up over the years, 25-20 to the spread. NFC even a little bit better, 32-13 straight up and 25-19 to the spread. What we've got here is a rarity in the sense that you have a home dog, a number 1 seed and a home dog in the Denver Broncos. A little bit rare to find that for sure. And you'll find that in Denver's favor here, maybe we'll start it off with them, that home teams in the championship games that are coming off back-to-back wins and covers are 39-15 straight up, 34-20 to the number. That'll be the role Denver will assume in this football game against New England. And Andy,
By the way, excuse me, Mark, that
Right.
does include their final regular season game, doesn't it? Because they didn't play in the wild card round, Denver.
Yeah, well, these are the records from the championship games, right?
Yeah. No, I'm saying that you said off back-to-back wins.
Back-to-back straight up and ATS wins.
Yeah, well, I'm saying the first of those was the Week 18 win,
Yes.
as opposed
yes,
to teams
correct.
that, for example, like New England. Okay, if this was a situation, if they were played in New England or something like that, their back-to-back wins would be wild card and divisional. Denver's back-to-back wins are
was
regular
last
season.
week of the season and
yeah.
divisional. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So a little bit of momentum going forward here. But Andy, I'm going to start it off with you in this AFC matchup, the Patriots and the Broncos. What's your take on this showdown?
Well, it's probably there are issues with all 4 teams. They're different issues. Denver, obviously, the issue is no Bo Nix, which is why they went from being a pregame or last week look ahead 1 to 1.5 point home favorite over New England, if that was the matchup, to being as high as a 5.5. It may have briefly gotten to 6, but basically 5.5. It's now 4.5 point home underdog. 5. I saw 1-5 out there last night. So that explains the move, which may be a little bit. Peyton has shown great confidence in Stidham. Keep in mind, however, that Stidham has not thrown. Now, he played in games here. I believe it was 1 handoff and 3 kneel downs. The last time he threw a pass in an NFL game was a little more than 2 years ago at the end of the 2023 season, January of 2024. And he really didn't see, as I said, much of the action. And I don't think he played anything last year for Denver as far as doing much. So you don't know what you're going to get with Stidham. Peyton has confidence in him, so I'll side with Peyton knowing what he's doing. But why didn't he at least see some action during the regular season just in case this situation unfolded? Now, as far as New England, the concerns to New England, Drake May is playing in his 20th game of the season. As a rookie, he only played in 13 games. He never played in as many games as a college quarterback. I'm wondering if the toll of the long season is getting to Drake May, because if you look at the last 2 games in the playoffs, 5 sacks in each game. I think he had 6 fumbles and lost 3 of them. I think he had 4 interceptions, uncharacteristic as to the way he played throughout most of the regular season. So that I wonder how much of a concern that is for the Patriots as far as is Drake May running out of gas. So I don't know if you're ready for me to give my thoughts on the game, but those are the concerns that I have.
Okay, we'll wrap up your thoughts when we close out the show, but
Sure.
I appreciate doing that. Greg, your thought, Denver in this football game against upstart New England.
Well, just to piggyback on what Andy's, the question Andy has, I'll answer it. And that's because the fact that he's playing better teams now. So I agree that he probably is wearing down a little bit too. That is what happens. I think it happens more to rookies. But I agree that's part of it. But I also think we talked about this before the playoffs began. The Patriots did not play a lot of good teams. And now they're playing good teams, good defenses that can attack Drake May. So he just doesn't stand in the pocket and throw the ball around all day. And so that is definitely something he's going to have to deal with again this week in Denver, which is why I'm actually shocked that this line is 2-1 money line on Denver. I thought this would have been at the most 2.5 to 3 New England. I had no problem with the Patriots being the favorite. I think it's kind of cool that Jarrett Stidham was drafted by the Patriots. I think that's pretty cool that he spent his first several years there. So there's a little extra there as well. But in reality, I think McDaniels
knows his strengths and weaknesses from coaching him back in New England.
Sure. And I think the interesting thing, though, really, I think what we got out of what happened last weekend is, I think, and we see it with the line. The NFC right now is favored. The line is minus 230. And I think we're looking at a situation where whoever wins this game is not going to win the Super Bowl, but good luck to them. And I hope it's a really good game.
Well, they're favored 230 because it's either Seattle or the Rams as opposed to New England or Denver with Stidham as a quarterback. And that's a big reason that, that number gets to be as high as it is right now. Jim, let me ask you this question. Jarrett Stidham is in now for Denver. Bo Nix fractured his ankle. He's gone for the year. What would the line in this game have been had Nix been behind center at quarterback in this contest? What would it have been? Denver at home with Nix against New England. What would you have made this line? 1.5 to 2.5. Denver?
Yes.
Okay. So now we were looking at a time, a 5.5 point home dog. My question to you then is Bo Nix a 7-point quarterback?
Well, it's even worse than that. I mean, I took 6 with Denver.
Well, there you go.
I mean, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It's an overreaction by a very unsophisticated public. He's not there, but we have a second-year quarterback with a first-year head coach in New England. Now, I like Vrabel a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking him, but they played the worst. I think it's the worst strength of schedule in the league.
Softest, yes. Right.
So now you're going to Denver, who's the number 1 seed in the conference, and a decent defense, not as strong as Houston, no, but they're playing at Mile High Stadium. I mean, it's a cross-country trip. It's on the road with a young quarterback.
Altitude.
Altitude, yes. I like May. I like Drake May. I like Vrabel. I like everything about what they've been doing. And you can't blame them too much for playing a weak schedule because they just got to beat the team that's in front of them. But I don't think they'd have won the game last week if Stroud decided to play for Houston instead of New England. But be that as it may, that's not knocking New England. I just had a high hopes for Houston. I thought they were really, really good and very dangerous. I had no idea Stroud would play like that. The Denver, to me, is the side in this game. I mean, Stidham is a professional quarterback who's been around for, I think, 7 years. Everybody thinks highly of him. Even the offensive coordinator for New England liked him. Sean Payton has went out of his way to bring him in. Again,
Stidham was supposed to be at the time the successor to Brady when they drafted him.
Correct. So
they thought highly of him.
The guy's never really had that opportunity. And can he do it? I don't know. What is his work ethic? I don't know. But they have high regards for this guy. I cannot believe that a second-year quarterback is that much better than this guy that's been around for 7 years and had a lot of training. It's just, I think it's overreaction. Denver's a very good team. I'm not saying they're great. I don't believe they're great. Coaching-wise, I think both coaches are excellent. I think there's a lot of things to like about Denver. I took 6. I love the bet. I think they're crazy making this line this high.
Let me share some Jarrett Stidham stuff with our listeners out there. And you mentioned it, Jim, that Sean Payton is very, very high on this young man. And like I said, he made a major move to go get him before anybody else could. So he's not at all worried about Stidham being behind center in this football game. He's made 4 starts so far in the National Football League. Okay, nothing major. He was 117 for 197. And I think he had a quarterback rating of 78.3. You're not going to win Super Bowls with numbers like that, but it shows he's experienced and he's been behind center and he's done that before. What's really interesting to me, and I did a lot of deep research on this, there have been only 5 backup quarterbacks that have started a postseason game in the National Football League because the starting quarterback was injured. Only 5. You thought there'd be a whole lot more, but it's only 5. They were Gary Danielson for Detroit back in 1983, Frank Reich for the Buffalo Bills in 1993, Joe Webb for the Vikings in 2013, Connor Cook for the Raiders in 2017, and probably the most familiar to all of our listeners out there would be Nick Foles for the Eagles and the great job he did in 2018. But of all those 5, only 3 of them started at home, and all 3 of them won their home games. Just my little note in passing for the backup quarterback here to Jarrett Stidham.
Who was the third one, Mark? Because I would assume him Wright and Foles were the 2 others, right?
Joe Webb from Minnesota.
Yeah.
Joe Webb. Wow.
Yeah, he'd be the answer to a lot of trivia
I thought
questions.
David Woodley might have been one, but I think he played a good deal of the season with Miami. He didn't just, come
Yeah,
off
the
the
way he
bench.
played
The
in the
concern I
regular
have with
season.
Stidham, the concern I have with Stidham is that's very little action. He's been in the pros for what we say 6-7 years and only 4 starts. I've got to think that there's got to be some concern if he's rusty.
Well,
Is he in shape?
Well, remember he's been leading that squad against the number 1 team too in practice. So, it's all Sean Payton's confidence in this young man, and we're going to find out whether it's right or whether it's wrong. Greg, what do you think here? Denver, New England.
He may be the only player on the field that's not hurt.
That's true.
That's a good way to look at it, Jim. The only one that doesn't have bruises and nicks and wraps on his body everywhere.
Yeah, the thing that look, it's to me, I think that the reason that this could work is because they're only asking him to go out there as a backup quarterback and play in 1 game to get to the Super Bowl. That's it. You're not asking him to do like what Jacoby Brissett did earlier this year, which is, hey, because what did he do? Jacoby Brissett came in the first couple of games, they won a game or 2, I forget, and they were like, offense galore. And then all of a sudden, you look 8 weeks later and on an 8-game losing streak because Jacoby Brissett's not a starting quarterback. But you can get these backups that could come in for a game or two, and you could get away with that. And you could have all the film in the world on Stidham, but maybe that's to their advantage that he hasn't played a lot of football in the last several years. And he certainly hasn't played a lot with this group and with this coach. So I think that alone, that's why, again, a 1 game off, absolutely Denver can pull this off. If you said, okay, Denver's got to play New England 10 straight weeks, oh, I'm taking New England. There's no way Stidham's going to be like this for 10 straight weeks. But for 1 game in Denver as a dog, I definitely think it's the way to go.
Give you guys one more school of thought on this game before we move over to the NFC Championship game. But I also ran this in my database, and this is New England, a football team that, remember, they only won 4 games last year. And generally, you'll find teams in the National Football League playoffs that come from that low of depths of somewhere and rarely succeed if they do make the playoffs. And yet New England has done that this year. But those 4-win teams the previous year, when they were on the road in a championship game, they are 1-6 straight up. That's what New England's got at the hurdle they have to get a little bit over in this particular football game. 0-5 against a 750 or better team, by the way.
Are they going to have? They're going to be one year play against next year because of the 4 wins one year and all the wins this year? Isn't that one of those historical bet against seasons? I think that you talked about. Houston might have been one of those teams actually that fit that moniker. I forget. I think you had one of those teams this year. When it wasn't Houston, it was some other team.
A lot of that was going from worst to first.
Something like that. That you said, yeah, if a team has like 8 more wins, and then the next year they have like a decline by usually 3 or 4 games or something like that. So I'm sure we'll talk about it next year.
Keep in mind, however, with New England, it's in a little bit of an unusual case because of the weak schedule. Their season win total, despite winning 4 games last year, was 8.5 this year. They still overexceeded it, but it's not as though they came into the season thought of as much better. Right. Yeah, as much better than a 4-win team that they were last year because of the schedule and the changes that were made.
I'd like to bring this up. Vrabel in the playoffs has ramped up his pressure on the quarterback. He's actually been double platooning it, bringing pressure on almost every play on the quarterback. That is going to be something that's going to be, it would be difficult on anybody because they're coming 5-6 right. I mean, it's almost an all-out blitz on the quarterback. Now, very few quarterbacks, even the experienced ones, can handle that. However, he has seen this. I mean, Sean Payton has seen this in the film. Now, how does he offset that? Because that's basically what this is. This is a chess match. How does he offset that? Not only with Nix being there, because it might not make any difference if it's Nix or Stidham. If you can't handle the pressure, the offensive line is going to have to hold up. That may not be possible. Maybe they can't hold up. But running the ball, how does Denver shape up if they have to run the ball?
Well, unfortunately, they haven't. That's been a problem for them. So if you're looking at an angle where you're saying you like New England, that's one of the things that you're pointing to. Denver is not a good. I
like New England. What I'm saying is
no. I'm saying if you that to answer your question, that's a bad situation for Denver because they can't run the football. Okay. So if you're somebody who likes New England, that's what you're going to argue against. You're going to go, I like the Patriots because now you're giving me a backup quarterback and they can't run the football. So that's now they may get J.K. Dobbins back. That's going to be very important to find out whether or not, because he's been out couple of months, whatever it's been, 6 weeks. He's their number 1 running back. And he's now on his timeline where he's back to practice. Will he be available for game time? That could be a really big deal.
Yeah, it'd be a big factor for them. They ranked 19th in the league in overall in rushing. And if you can put Dobbins in that backfield here, that could be exactly the missing piece that Sean Payton would want to work with Jared Stidham in the football game. All right, guys, let's get it over to the NFC side of things where we've got I think a heck of a football game here on tap. the Rams, the number 5 seeded Rams, against the top seeded Seattle Seahawks. Jim, what do you think happens here? These are two football teams that we've talked about all season long. I know you and I think most of us on the panel like the Rams from the get-go of this football season here, and probably aren't surprised that they're in this championship game. Maybe just a little bit because they're the number 5 seed, but it's also a division game here and some nasty revenge for the Rams in this contest here. What do you think happens in this game, Jim? Rams and Seahawks.
I have to look at what's happened recently, because I can't. In the beginning, I thought the Rams were the best team in football, and crazily, I thought the Rams would end up meeting Tampa Bay, but that was a bad idea and didn't work out too well. But the Rams are there, and I did not expect Seattle to be there. However, when you look at the Rams having to go on the road to win 3 straight games to get to the Super Bowl, that's a grind. Panthers were tough. Chicago was tough. And when you look at the stats in the Chicago game, albeit the weather, I understand that. Chicago won a lot of stats in that game, except for the turnovers and the drop passes, because Chicago had drop passes and 3 turnovers. They won the yards per play, everything about that game. And when you look at the Rams lately, Stafford has been falling off a little bit and putting the ball in danger a little bit. Seattle is the better team right now. If you look at the most recent games, they are the better team. I don't like the loss for Charbonnet for loss of that, but they're going to have another running back in there. And sometimes, the star is born. A diamond in the rough comes on the field and plays.
Charbonnet wasn't their best running back.
No, but he was a good relief guy.
He was.
And so, yeah, you can't. I don't think you could run the other guy every play. So you're going to have some relief for him. But Seattle's the best team in football if you look at the last month or so. And I can't ignore that. So for me, and you know how I am with small favorites, a money line play on Seattle is what I'm doing. Now, if somebody likes playing teasers, you might like you do that. You can money line play Seattle, and you could also take the Rams on a 6 or 6.5 point teaser with the side in the other game that you like, which I would personally do Denver because I like the dog anyway. So I'd have the Rams in a teaser with Denver, but I'd like Denver plus the 4.5 to 6, whatever you can get, and Seattle on the money line. That's how I'm playing it.
So you wouldn't do the teasers, just plus 6.5 or 8.5 to the Rams and 10.5 to the Denver Broncos.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Because you're crushing some really key numbers in doing just that.
Yeah, I got all the Wong things going for me. The Wong teasers. Yep. I never cross 0. I never do that because you give up a point. I'm not going to get into that explanation right now, but yeah, Rams plus 9 at 6.5. If you can find a 3, then you're getting 9.5. And then Denver plus 11. But for me, I like Denver. Yeah. If you're just talking straight bets, I like Denver and Seattle, but Seattle money line.
There's Jim Feist on the football game, what he's doing on that particular contest. Andy, what do you think goes on here in this NFC battle? Should be a heck of a football game.
Well, the only question I have about Seattle is Sam Darnold. They have been the most consistent team all year from start to finish. They have one of the things I take a look at, because I like to see how these teams unfold throughout the season and they change. One of the things I do is I break the season down into the 4 quarters. It's a little bit more difficult with 17 games because with 16 game schedule, games 1 through 4, 5 through 8, etc. Now I do 4, 4, 4, and the last quarter is 5 games. One thing, and I don't know that any other team has it, but certainly the only team in the playoff, Denver is the only one of the 4 teams that has had a positive yards per play differential of more than 1 in all 4 quarters. That's extreme consistency. And I like yards per play because it's a measure of how efficient you are when you have the ball. If you gain 100 yards on 20 carries, it's 5.0. If you gain 100 yards on 25 carries, that's 4.0. So the yardage total is dependent upon the number of carries that you have, that could be misleading. Same thing with pass attempts, so or even pass completion. So I look at when you run certain plays, how effective are you? Seattle clearly has been the most consistent. The edge that I give the Rams is in turnovers. And we know Seattle, especially because of Darnold, has turned it over a lot. And the Rams in the two games have been the beneficiaries of those turnovers. However, the other thing that I think, and is maybe as if not more significant of an advantage for Seattle, special teams play. Seattle's excellent on special teams. Rams are horrible on special teams. That goes back to the early part of the season against Philadelphia, and they continued to have issues. So I actually did something like Jim did. I like also Denver, and I like Seattle. I did. I actually did a. Well, I didn't do a teaser. I did a money line on Denver, and I parlayed it with Seattle minus the 2.5. I would not have done that at -3, but at -2.5, I did that, and then I did Denver plus. I had to buy it up from 5.5 to 6, but I like that one as well, and then a straight play on Denver minus the 2.5. So I split it, but I did want to have some Denver money line in there as well, and try to maximize the possibility if I'm right about both games. Because Mark, like you said, I was on Seattle since the middle part of the season, since October. I had the Rams and Seattle 1-2 with a little bit of a gap between whoever was 3 at the time. The other concern I have for the Rams, their play down the stretch defensively has been horrible against any good team that they face, and even some teams that were playing well. And I think it all goes back to that first game against Carolina, where they lost 30 to 27. And then even in the playoff game, the wild card round, they had to come back in the final quarter to come from behind and win 34-31 in a game that meant their season, and against a team that they had struggled with in the first meeting. I wouldn't have placed such an emphasis on the Rams' play down the stretch if it had been only 1 or 2 games where the defense struggled. But this was a case probably in about 4 or 5 of their last 8 games where the defense did not look very good. And that's a concern. And so I asked myself, why is this line only -2.5 on Seattle, given Seattle's full season consistency and the Rams' recent play? And I guess what we're seeing is that the lines maker, and apparently the public, at least to a certain extent, based the line on the Rams' full season performance, September through December, or the first week of January, as opposed to taking into consideration the consistently weak play that the Rams defense has shown over the last, going back almost 2 months. Because I thought that this line, if you factored in the Rams' recent play, Seattle was the better team. Now, what's interesting in the 2 matchups here, the Rams won the first game 21-19. Seattle dominated the stats in that game. In the game that followed, the wild one, where the Rams had that 30-14 lead, and Seattle came back with the 2 two-point conversions, including the controversial one and one in overtime when they matched the Rams' touchdown with a successful 2-point conversion, that the Rams had far dominating statistics to that game. However, and it's probably been pointed out a number of places, total points in the 2 games between Seattle and the Rams this year in the 2 games differed by 1 point. Total yards in the 2 games between Seattle and the Rams differed by 1 yard. Those teams are basically even. So maybe you could say that, yeah, this game is being priced as if these teams are even, and maybe giving Seattle a 2.5 point advantage for being at home, which I think, given on the way these teams have played over the second half of the season, seems a bit short.
Mark, there's Trend Tacklers has made some comments, but I think it's right up your alley of what he's saying that you might want to look at.
Let me bring it up here, Jim. Can you run that by me while I bring it up, if you would?
Sure. Broncos' Sean Payton is 17-2 straight up at home after week 6. Patriots coming off 3 consecutive home games. McVay and Stafford are 4-0 as playoff dogs. Different things he's picked up in his analysis.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I like what he brings to the table.
That's why, again, my main concern for Seattle, everything I said about that stuff, is Darnold. Will he be able to rise to the occasion? Because everything else to me points to Seattle. But that's a huge question, obviously, with Darnold.
Yeah, obviously, it's a big question.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, let me ask you this. Jim brought up a great point about the Rams playing 3 in a row on the road, which has never been easy for teams in the National Football League playoffs. And in fact, you can look at this two ways. I'm going to share both of these numbers with you. The first one, going all the way back to my database since 1980, NFL playoff teams in the third of 3 in a row on the road are 18-59 straight up, 29-46-2 against the spread.
Oh, wow.
That's a pretty tall hurdle for the Rams to have to get over here.
You're talking playoffs?
Yes, this is all playoffs.
Wow.
Three in a row on the road, you're in the playoffs.
Now, in many of those years, that third game would have been the Super Bowl. When
really,
you had
no, it isn't, Andy, because the way I paraphrase it with my database is that I put this as a true away game, okay? Not a neutral game. Our database looks at the Super Bowl as a neutral site game. But these are true away games in the National Football League playoffs. But I got to throw this out there. If you go back and you look at this, since 1990, when they expanded the playoffs to where they are currently with the amount of teams that are in the playoffs, 3 in a row on the road are 12-45 straight up and 22-34-1 to the spread. So they've improved since 1980 through 1990. They were horrific the 10 years prior to that. Do you think this is a factor in this football game, Greg, the Rams playing 3 in a row on the road?
The only reason that I don't think it is because, and if you look at it, it has been done. There have been wild card teams that have won on the road and won the Super Bowl. And what does it take? It takes great teams to accomplish this. And I think you look at the Rams, and we talked about it. You mentioned it before you started talking about this game, is that we all felt that the Rams were a Super Bowl caliber team. We all felt that they were and had championship caliber coaches and players. And that's what they have. They're also as healthy as they've been all season. I think they're even a little bit healthier than they've been the last 3 or 4 weeks, which Andy referenced. The injuries have definitely been a part of why their defense hasn't been as good as it was earlier this season. But they're as healthy as they need to be. I agree with Andy on the special teams. I think that is definitely something, especially when you have Rashid Salid back there. If that kid returns a punt, that special teams coordinator might be fired on the spot. So, or a kick. They might even just give Seattle the ball at the 40-yard line every time that they kick off. So there are things to work against the Rams, but overall, because they have a championship coach and an MVP quarterback and superstar players, I'm not really worried about that. Because I look at this matchup, and the quarterback spot, as we all know, is so important. And I'd much rather have Matthew Stafford than Sam Darnold in this spot. I'd also much rather have Rob McVay in this spot over McDonald, because McDonald has never been here before, and McVay has. So they've got in my mind, they've got the edge at quarterback and head coach. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything, as we saw last year when the Eagles destroyed the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. But I think that because the Rams know they could put up yardage against Seattle, which is so hard to do, they put up almost 600 yards of offense the last time they played in Seattle. And this is so this is a defense that is one of the best in the NFL, but the Rams are not going to be intimidated by them. It's not, nor should it be an issue. And so I think it comes down to fourth quarter, who's going to make the big plays, who are you going to trust? And there's just no doubt I'm going to trust Matthew Stafford to make the big plays over Sam Darnold.
One problem I didn't mention about the Rams, and it's been noticeable throughout the season, their play calling and success rate on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 is absolutely horrible. That's why they've had so many 3 and outs. And there was a segment today on the Good Morning Football show where one of the commentators talked about the 4 minutes drill that a lot of teams have. And you want to be able to succeed in the fourth quarter, being able to take time off the clock. And the Rams have not done very well at all in those fourth quarter drives going back, at least over the second half of the season, where they had way too many 3 and outs and they could not control, which is why they gave up a lot of those late leads, and a number of those games cost them victories.
Good point, Andy. I'm going to get to the Rams side of this football game with Greg here as well. Couple of reasons. I agree 100% with Greg on the coach and the quarterback. There's edges in both departments there. Not that Mike McDonald is a bad head coach at all. It's just that McVay's been there and McDonald hasn't. McDonald's done all of his damage as a head coach in the National Football League on the road, which is his road record is like a twilight zone, 15-2 straight up and 12-4-1 to the number. At home, he's just 10-8 straight up and 7-10-1.
By the way, he was 3-6 straight up last year, 7-2 this year at home. So he has gotten better this year.
He has improved, yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's that law of averages kicking in there, Andy.
Yep.
Especially
Regression, regression to the mean.
Yeah,
10-8 or 8-10 is pretty much
when you have a good
50-50.
team. Another thing I'm going to call out of the Playbook newsletter this week is dogs in championship games. When they're coming off back-to-back wins, both as a favorite, and they change the role to the dog, they are 18-8 to the spread in this particular role. And this is kind of a unique stat. I had to really dig. In fact, I got to say that I had a little help from Chat GPT and also Grok on this one, because I put them to work asking this question here. But I found out that, and Andy knows this, the NFL started seeding teams in 1975.
Yeah.
And since 1975, there have been 104 teams that have made it to the Super Bowl. 100 of those teams were either number 1, 2, 3, or 4 seeds. The other 4 that weren't 1, 2, or 3, 4 seeds that made it to the Super Bowl all won the Super Bowl. It's incredible that the number 5 or 6 seeds won the Super Bowl. The kids who shouldn't have been in there, but they did, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl outright. I love Trend Trackers and what he mentioned here about McVay and Stafford together as a dog in the playoffs, having not lost the money in this particular game. So put me down for the Rams in this particular football game. And I'm going to close this whole segment out with everybody. I'm going to go right around the corner here and ask you guys, which of these 2 football games is your favorite game? Mine would be the Rams, of which I just mentioned. Jim Feist, your favorite game on the card this weekend? Your favorite player?
Denver.
Jim Feist with the Denver Broncos. I can relate to that too. Okay, Andy Isko, your favorite play on the card this week?
I'm actually going to go with a total. I think we're going to see a lot of scoring in the Seattle Rams game. I'm going to look over the total in that one.
Andy goes over Seattle Rams. And Greg, if I didn't read too much into what you said about both of these football games, I'm going to kind of guess you're going to go to the Rams, but I'm not going to surmise that. What is your favorite play here, Greg?
Yeah, I have to go with the Rams. As much as I like Denver, and I do, and I'm going to pick Denver, I have to go. If I'm putting my hard-earned money, which I am, on both of those teams, I'm definitely putting more money on Stafford, McVay, and the Rams.
Okay, guys, great show here this particular week.
By the way, Mark, who did you have in the Denver game?
I like the Denver Broncos.
So that means we all have Denver.
We all have Denver, and
Yes.
we're a little bit split on the Rams game.
And do you have one of these? Does anybody want to, in case anybody out there, because some people are looking to make some money on these exact results. So anybody have any input on these exact results? You see the odds here.
Well, anybody. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Okay.
Yeah.
Rams and Patriots 370. Okay.
Yeah, because right now 2 of us have Seattle, Denver, and 2 of us have Rams, Denver. Because I'm assuming we're all taking NFC, or maybe is that correct?
You don't have the exact odds for Denver winning over.
Yes.
Or it's up on top there. Okay, because I only see 3 of them at a time.
Now, here's an interesting thing, because keep this in mind. Denver is 13-1 to win the Super Bowl, which is incredible.
That's the Stidham adjustment.
Yes,
yeah, and so just imagine if you've got a lot of money on either the Rams or Seattle, you have to put money on Denver as a hedge and say, hey, man, just beat the Patriots. And I've got at least, some money coming my way in the Super Bowl.
What is Stidham to win the MVP in the Super Bowl, Greg? There's a price out there on that, by the way.
Yeah, that would be.
Because if you like Denver to make it to the Super Bowl and even win the Super Bowl, you're better off. I was ready to bet Stidham to win the MVP as you are to win the Broncos to win the Super Bowl. You get a bigger, better price with Stidham to win the MVP.
That's
19-1.
19-1. I'll tell you what, I might play Denver. If I'm looking for that exactor, I'd rather have Denver over the Rams at, I think, what was it, 25-1 than Denver over Seattle, because I think Seattle's defense is much better than the Rams. If that turned out to be the Super Bowl matchup, I think Denver would have a better chance of beating the Rams than they would Seattle.
Yeah, and I actually put a little bit of money on Kenneth Walker as MVP because he's 13 to 15 to 1. And I think if there's not, and it's hard to not go with a quarterback. I get that. What is it, like 90% of quarterbacks? But I can envision a situation where, like, if Denver's defense is in there and Sam Darnold doesn't throw a lot, that maybe it's the running game that comes through for him.
So I think that's the matchup that would make the most sense, because you'd have the two weakest quarterbacks of the four facing each other in a Seattle-Denver matchup.
So what was the exact result? So go ahead and any of these specific ones that you like the most?
Well, I would take a shot with Denver over the Rams at 25 to 1, because I think they could win despite the lack of experience, although Peyton has won a Super Bowl, as has McVay. But if I were going to just ignore the Denver their time for a moment, Patriots over the Rams, if they make it to having won 3 games against 2 pretty good defenses, actually 3 pretty good defense, because Denver's still a pretty good defense, I could see, Vrabel with his experience as a player, certainly plus 650 might be something to take a look at of the ones not involving Denver.
Jim, any of these stick out for you that you like?
Boy.
The most? Because again, you've got Seattle and Denver in the Super Bowl. I mean, you've got Seattle and Denver.
Even though I'm betting Denver at +6 from my own pocket and giving it out at +4.5 or 5, whatever it is, I do think that the Patriots have a better chance of winning the game straight up.
Okay.
But so that would be Seattle and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So what's the odds of that?
Seattle 255 or 550.
What is it?
550 if New England wins, 255 if Seattle wins.
What if they both make it? What's that combination for both of them to make it, Greg?
Oh, without a winner?
Yes, just you're saying that the Super Bowl will be Seattle and Denver. Seattle.
Well, whatever the conference odds are right now on it. What are the conference?
230.
Yeah, whatever the money line is in this game on both of those teams is basically, you can't really. I guess there are some places probably offshore where you can bet an exacta of well, you can play the money line of Seattle or
these odds are coming from DraftKings. So if you're
good
in that market, you can get it. I mean, Rams Patriots is 370.
Yeah.
So, that's.
Well, it's basic. What you basically would do is, if you like Rams and Patriots to meet in the Super Bowl without picking a winner, you just do a money line parlay today, which is basically the same similar thing of the Rams to the Patriots money line. Now, and if they both win,
make it, Greg. What if both dogs win to make it to the Super Bowl? What's that price?
Well, again, they don't have the just getting there. Obviously, if it's Denver and the Rams, then you got 7 to 1 or 25 to 1. Let me see. I could actually do a little bit of math myself. I'm going to go right to my sports book and put in both. Let me put in both and see what it comes out to.
By the way, while you're doing that, one thing to keep in mind, which I think gives Denver a chance to win these games, they led the NFL in sacks both last year and this year. 63 last year, 68 this year. I have to believe they're going to be pressuring Drake May quite a bit and force May to beat him. And again, May is not in the best of forms based upon the 2 other defenses that they faced in the playoffs of Houston and the Chargers. So Denver I think they're a legitimate long shot in this game.
All right, let's see. So I've got, if we're going with Denver and the Rams, 6 to 1.
Yeah.
So if you pick both the Denver and Rams and you put $100 down, you make 600.
Yeah, and what's that's Denver and the Rams?
That's Denver and the Rams.
Okay.
Money line only.
Right. And you would get the Rams over Denver at +700 and Denver over the Rams at +2,500. If we're Denver and the Rams, for example. As opposed to 6 to 1 just to get them to both make it to the Super Bowl.
Greg, BBKK put some comments up there.
Let's see. Oh, I have since 2005 teams that are on their third consecutive playoff road game, dog in all three. It's 1-6, 2-5 ATS. Remove the dog aspect, 4-9, 5-8. Teams coming off overtime playoff games since 2017, 1-5 straight up, 2-4 against the spread. Yeah, the thing with I will say this. I think it's one of those deals when you look at some of these historical trends, just like we were just talking about with how rare it is for that third team to win in the playoffs. And I think that's why I brought up, I agree with all these stats. I love them. I use them a lot, but I'm willing to forget about them for only instances when I think you have teams that look like they're a Super Bowl team. So we can all sit here and say the Rams can win the Super Bowl and it would surprise nobody. Matter of fact, a lot of people still probably believe they're the team to beat. That's why they're only a 2.5-point road dog. So if anybody's going to break these trends, it's a team like the Rams. So, but they're good trends to have, good stats.
Basically, honestly, the Rams and Seahawks, it's really a pick 'em. And these teams are, other than the negative fact that Rams are on road 3 straight weeks.
What would you make the game on a neutral field between these two teams? I'd make it pick 'em.
Yes,
maybe Rams. Well, maybe Rams by -1 because of the quarterback differential, but the teams are so even.
Yeah, I agree. I
think it helps the Rams that at least the third game isn't like they got to go traveling back to the Midwest or something.
Like they're not playing in New England.
Yeah, at least it's in their time zone. So it shouldn't be that difficult of a third road trip.
By the way, considering the Rams had to play a tough game in bad weather on the road in overtime, and Seattle had a cakewalk, that's a fatigue issue. And
it could be.
Then you do have an old quarterback. 37 is old for football. I hate to say 37's old, but for football it is. That's a negative. I mean, these road teams have a little bit of difficulty here because of the travel issues and what they went through. New England was at home, of course, but there's so much involved in this stuff. I mean, it's really hard.
One thing to keep in mind when you get set for the Super Bowl, if Seattle is in the Super Bowl, keep in mind they will have just played in Santa Clara in Week 18. Very familiar with the field, with the wind conditions and everything else. I don't believe either Denver or New England played there this year.
And here are the finalists you were talking about, Mark. So if you just want to know what the odds are for the two teams to get to the Super Bowl, these are the odds. So you got New England versus the Rams at 2-1, with the highest number, Denver and the Rams.
What is it, 6-1, the highest number?
The highest is 550, Denver and the Rams.
Okay, that's what FanDuel is showing at plus 490 because they rape everybody. So they're not going to give anybody any extra money. So it does look
we
like
just went over it. That's why when I parlayed it, it came out to 6-1.
Yeah, which is what you may want to think about, because if you parlay, let's say Denver and the Rams to win this week, that's one bet. If you play the exacta, Rams over New England, New England over Rams, or Denver over Rams, Rams over Denver, that's 2 bets.
Hey guys, we got to get out of here. Great show this week. Real good preview on the championship game. A little bit of talk about the National Football League head coaches. We'll be back next week, next Thursday, same time, to set up the Super Bowl. We'll get in depth. And I got to say this, that the best news I had on the show today was learning that Jim Feist is going to be doing college football next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. How nice is that?
and no show for Jim at Dom DeMarco's next week, just to let everybody know.
No,
they'll be taking a week off. So
I will say this, that Andy made the over and under for the show 45 minutes. Andy, you got to change careers, not be a bookmaker.
Or talk less.
But with that, I got to get out of here to make Andy be able to cash that ticket, guys.
And don't forget to check out at 4:00 Eastern, our horse racing coverage returns. John Hardoon and I will be talking about some big races this Saturday at Gulfstream Park.
Great show. Be sure to tune that in here on the Proline TV network.
Take
So
care.
for Jim Feist, Andy Isco, Greg DePalma, until we come back next week, once again, this is Mark Lawrence reminding you to always to remember to bet with your head, not over it, and